Well, hello and welcome to the Creating Connections podcast, where I bring voices and perspectives from people who are making a difference for children's learning and development. I'm Rachel Stewart, and I'm passionate about connecting with people to share experiences and learn from each other how we can best support children to thrive. As founder and director of Practically Learning, I specialise in developing the capacity of parents and educators through personal development coaching and professional learning programs to build trust to engage in effective partnerships. In this series of the podcast, we are exploring different people, support networks, and organisations who are able to provide a circle of support for you as parents as you navigate your way through the school journey with your children. You'll learn from a diverse range of people how they can support you to guide your children to reach their fullest potential as unique and whole beings. Today, I'm introducing you to Lisa Taylor, who is a coach, family therapist, and founder of Strengthening Families Australia. Lisa is passionate about supporting parents to become more conscious in their significant role to guide and raise their children. Lisa and I both share a passion and common interest in supporting children by helping the adults who surround them to be more confident and self-aware of their capacity to parent and teach. Lisa has over 25 years' experience working across business, government, education, community services, clinical services, not-for-profit organisations, as well as with complex and vulnerable families. Lisa's mission is to create an experience of connection and belonging that allows love to thrive in both family and business contexts. I really hope you feel inspired and supported as you hear from Lisa about how to become more conscious in your parenting and how to believe in yourself to enable the parent growth journey to unfold. So I'd like to welcome Lisa Taylor to the podcast today. Well, I'd like to officially welcome you to the podcast,
Thank you.
Circle of Support series, where we're exploring support for parents. And you and I have a lot in common in our mission to try and support the adults who surround children, because we have such a passion for supporting children and seeing them thrive. So I'd love to hear how it all began for you. I know you've had quite a broad career in corporate and in education as well.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear how it all started for you. I always start with my guests just sharing their foundation story and how it's led you to where you are now.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. It's really lovely to be here. So I suppose my story really is I was a teacher after I left school was a teacher. And one of the things that kind of was really tricky for me was that I was kind of more worried about the kids that were sort of outside the principal's office, in trouble, than I was really about whether my kids could read or write. And I always felt really in tune and really in touch with the kids emotionally, but I didn't kind of care so much, if they were up to standard, which is probably didn't make me the best teacher. But what it did do was, I suppose, I had a moment in my life where my mum passed away, and it really kind of was a moment where I was like, okay, what am I really meant to be doing here? Like, what's my purpose? Often those big events call for a big kind of reviewing of who you are. And so I left my very sensible teaching job. I had two children at the time. And yeah, actually I think I had three children. Sorry, I did have three children. And then I just went and I saw a life coach. She was a friend of mine, and just all I could come up with was that I want to help people. And so from there kind of grew. I did a life coaching course, and then I niched in kind of the parent coaching. And all of my experience with education really helped support that. And then I was working for an organisation, a community services organisation, working with families who were referred from child protection, either for reunification or for removal. And so it was a really tricky space. I had 12 months to work with these families. And whilst I really loved it, it was really hard and really tricky, because when people are in crisis, it's really hard to make big and good change.
Yeah.
But I loved the work. And I suppose it doesn't really matter what parents you're working with. Everybody at some point in life has some kind of crisis or some kind of space where they're stuck and can't move. And so I really did love it. So a few years of that, and then I got the opportunity to kind of review where I was, because rather than being at the pointy end of helping people when they're kind of at their most challenged. I really wanted to be up the other end, so at the ambulance at the top of the hill, if you know what I mean, rather than down the bottom. And so I applied for a job in the same organization as a to run a program that was came from America called Strengthening Families. And so I was trained in that and led that for a number of years. And we got really great government funding, and that's still running. So we adapted it for Australia, and that's still running, which I'm really proud of. But after all of that, sort of decided that I would like to go out on my own. Sorry, back up a bit. During that time, I was introduced to family therapy we had some training, someone come in and run some training for us. And for me, it was like putting on a new pair of glasses, because all of a sudden I really could see how the systems around people work, and that whole systems theory and system thinking. So, for example, nothing changes if I don't change. If I want to change something in my life, I have to make the change first, and then it's kind of the rest follows. And that was a really life-changing moment, because it just made sense to me. So I went on to study a lot and did a master's degree in family and systemic therapy. And that's really been, I suppose, a really good, all of the things that I've been through and learnt have been a really good base for sort of where I'm at now. I had dabbled in the corporate world for the last few years, so working with a friend in her business, working with companies, and again working with teams, and again working with people and working with parents, and it's all kind of the same thing. Working with people is all about relationships and connection and communication, and just at a different level. But my heart has always been working within that parenting sort of family space. So I've left that corporate world to the side. I still do some running. I still run some training and stuff for them, but yeah, love working with parents in schools and teams to
Yeah.
build capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many parallels between you and I with, we've started I guess, our parenting journey and had three children and
Yeah.
explored a passion for, I suppose when you have your own children, you see the spark in them when they're young, and you have that opportunity to nurture them and help them to learn as, little people, as toddlers, and you see how amazing their whole view of life is. And so you just want that to continue, especially when they get to school.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, that has been a catalyst, I suppose, for your shift in career as well, similar to me, where
Yeah.
you see the need for helping other parents to feel that way as well.
Yeah.
Would you say that was your experience parenting? Because we know parenting is
Oh,
such a challenge, but
yes.
such a joy at the same time. It's such a
Yeah.
paradox, and it really shines a light on you as a person. It really, especially kids, because they're brutally honest.
Yeah. Oh, look, absolutely, Rachel. When I was a young mum, I remember being so frustrated, and I remember I used to clench my hands and clench my teeth. And it was always a real signal that I was just overwhelmed and that I needed to take a break, not so much my kids. And I think that the biggest learning I've ever had has been through being a parent, really about myself. And that's at the moment, that's just something I'm so passionate about, is working with parents on, they often parents want to change the children, and they think that changing the children is the way to go, and that's the key to being an amazing parent or growing great children. But actually it's really that ability to reflect on how you were parented. So it's noticing moments where you're triggered, and moments where you feel reactive to something that a child has done, and we've all had those moments where we've kind of overreacted, like the kids spilt the milk and we are like just totally lose it. I think every parent's had moments like that, and the real passion that I have for working with parents and working with teachers and just people in general is really asking them to really go deep into what is that about? What is that about? And are you responding to that child in front of you? Or are you responding to the child within you? And that's kind of the key sort of messaging, I suppose, that I'm working around at the moment is helping people to notice themselves and be curious about what that is. Because yeah, look, my kids have been my greatest teachers and continue to be, mind you. Teenagers are always, I'm still always challenged and learning and wondering about what that is for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it can, but it can be very confronting to actually look yourself in the mirror and realize that it's you that needs to change. I remember clearly when I had that realization myself and did a similar thing to you in engaging a life coach.
Yeah.
So, how did your life coach change your life? And I hear so many stories of people who are totally transformed once they do engage a life coach. How did
Yeah,
it
well,
impact you?
yeah, she was beautiful. She was actually a friend of mine as well. So she knew a lot about what I was going through, but I think what she did do was help me to clear the space. And I suppose this is what I do with families and parents that I work with is help them to kind of clear away the messy stuff that sort of gets them stuck and that's sort of in front of them and help them just to come back to really what's in their heart and really what like I suppose the best way to describe it is when we're growing up and when we're children, we're so free. And you think about any 4-year-old, they laugh and sing and dance, and they can wear a tutu to the supermarket
No
and not
inhibitions,
not care what anyone thinks,
no
right? But there's
conditioning.
that's right. But there's a moment for us where um, we, in our development, where generally between the ages of 7 and 9, where we are confronted by what other people might think of us. And so people comment, or someone, you as a child, you don't feel listened to, or you don't feel seen, or you don't feel heard. And so we make up these stories about who we are and how deserving we are, and for me, I don't know, this is a little sideways from your question, but I found a letter recently after my dad died, a letter that I wrote to Santa. And so it's, dear Santa, I hope you're well, right? That kind of stuff. I would really like blah, blah, blah for Christmas. I had a long list, but I know that I probably don't really deserve it because I haven't been very good for mum and dad lately. And there was
Um,
a kind of a thread through it that was, I'm not deserving.
mm,
And I almost feel emotional talking about it now, but it was a real reading the letter. I can see where there were moments in my childhood and with the help of my life coach and lots of other mentors that I've had over the years, that thread of I'm not good enough,
yeah,
that comes from that childhood conditioning. And I'm one of 5 kids, and my parents were busy. My dad was a principal, and my mum was a cafe owner and a mum and a gardener and all of the things. And being the fourth of 5 kids, there wasn't a lot of time, at times for a sensitive, and that's, what I'd consider my superpower now. But back then, being sensitive, and growing up on a farm wasn't something that was welcomed, and it wasn't something that people had time for.
yeah,
But often they didn't understand. The adults in my world, a lot of them didn't understand, and I made them uncomfortable. And I know that now, but back then I just thought there was something wrong with me. And so part of that, for parents to discover what is their own, inner child stuff, but what is their own conditioning and their own childhood stories, and when did they close? Because a lot of us, when we felt not listened to or not heard or not seen, is we closed and we put a guard up and we pretended to be somebody else. And a lot of parents and a lot of teachers and a lot of people walking around are still, being that kind of person that they think they need to be or should be. That word should. I
yeah,
should be a better parent, or I should be doing better, or I should be whatever. It's it's something that keeps us stuck and keeps us, really keeps our kids from being able to see who we truly are as people, and as beautiful souls in the world.
yeah. And it starts at such a young age, but it can be even worse once you have children because you can totally lose yourself
Oh, that's right.
in
Yeah.
helping everyone else except reflecting on yourself
Yeah.
and really taking the time to know who you are as a person, but as a parent, as a daughter, as a sister, all the different roles that you have to play.
That's right.
And sometimes it does feel like a play because you're, especially in your case, and I feel the same, where I had to prevent my true self from being exposed because people didn't really understand
Yeah.
it's understand that sort of person. But I think there's a lot of children now who are trying to express themselves and they're being viewed as different,
Yes.
which is kind of sad because we should feel able to express who we are, especially with the people who are supposed to love us and who are supposed to guide us and care for us. Do you think that now there's a lot of parents who are really falling into the trap of putting on those fake masks or false personas to fit in with other parents and with what they think they should be doing or what a parent should be and what a good parent looks like? Are there a lot of parents that you're coming across sitting under an illusion that you have to be a perfect parent or that you have something to prove to other people that you are a good parent? And where does that actually come from, do you think?
Yeah. Look, I definitely think there is a lot of pressure. I think generationally, I think like my parents didn't have the education or the knowledge or the I suppose the freedom that we do now, like in my parents' generation, it was kids do what they're told, kids should be seen and not heard, and all of that kind of that traditional parenting method. And that's definitely changed, and we've definitely got better at being more open and and listening to our children. But that idea that we have to be the perfect parent is such a misnomer. There is no perfect. We're human. Like we are so flawed, it's not funny, and it's okay. Like
We're
it's
raising humans.
and we're raising humans, and we want our children to know that there is no that they don't have to be perfect, that they just have to be themselves. I think social media is really challenging for a lot of parents. I find it challenging. I find it challenging to be on Facebook and see, especially this time of year when everyone's away on holidays or everyone's having this amazing time, and you see it and think, oh gosh, I should be doing that, or I should be you know, saving up all my money to go and do this amazing thing and then posting it. And I know with my own children on social media, there is that, they're watching YouTubers doing, the perfect makeup and the hair and all the bits and living the life. And it is a challenge. And I think that parents have to be really mindful of what they let in and how they measure reality
Yes.
because reality in your own home is the reality of parenting and being in relationship with children is about connection, ultimately more than anything else. It's not the big stuff, it's not the shoulds and the must do's. It's actually that being present
Yeah.
in the moment and being present to your kids. And I suppose the most important part is being present to yourself. That's it's really tricky raising kids these days.
Yeah, it is. And there's so many more pressures on women, particularly, to work
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I mean, there's some parents who are lucky enough to be able to have a partner or share the responsibilities so that you can, at least one of you can be around.
Yeah.
And it's possible because they're from our generation where our parents weren't really present
Yes.
and we were kind of left to our own devices in a lot of ways, which was positive in some sense because
Yeah.
we learned how to be resilient and how to solve problems ourselves and all those sorts of things. And I guess it's shifted a lot the other way where some parents are trying to solve their children's problems for them instead of just guiding them and then stepping back and allowing them to discover who they are and how they can solve their own challenges. And I guess the thing that just popped into my head when you were talking was about how to be more intentional in your parenting. And I suppose you can get carried away with the busyness of life and working and getting your children to school every day and the routine, and just becomes like Groundhog Day in some ways, where you're not really thinking about how am I actually parenting? How am I being present? Do you work with your clients to help them to be more intentional? And you call it conscious parenting, which I guess the word conscious is becoming a little bit more common in our vocabulary now, and people are understanding what it is, what it means to be conscious
Mm.
and intentional. So, how do you work with your clients around setting, I guess not setting goals, but really being aware of what they're doing every day, how they're presenting with their kids and what they're actually creating as a family?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Rachel, and it is something that I work with all of the parents that I work with in terms of that they'll come with a problem and there'll be a maybe a problem child or a problem person. And so we kind of take a step back and just I get to look and ask lots of questions and be really curious about what's happening in the whole dynamic rather than just with the individual or the person that's perceived to have the problem. And what we do is kind of work out what's the um the purpose of the problem, because often there's an indicator of something sort of larger that's happening. So we often a lot of children, primary school children's parents, well, they'll come because there's some behavioral issues or there's their child's really angry and their anger scares the parent. And so the parent doesn't know what to do and the parent feels scared and unsure. And so I'll work with the parent to, sort of really pull out what's happening and really trying to understand what's happening for the child, but teaching them about, and you sort of touched on it before, about being separate to the child rather than the child being an extension of them. And I
Yeah.
think that's one thing that as parents we really think that when our child's hurt, we are also hurt. And the key to parenting is to, or the key to any relationship really is to understand what's theirs and what's mine. So, I know when, for example, if my child was having a hard time at school, and one of my children did have a hard time at school, and I would really want to rush up to the teacher and say, like, what are you doing about it? And how are you going to protect my child? And, full bullet a gate. Um, but what I know is that that was my reaction to not feeling seen or heard or being hurt in the past. And so
Yes.
what I working with parents is about helping them to see what's theirs, and then from that space to be able to then support their child in whatever, means might be possible. And so I'm working with a client at the moment, and her son has a diagnosis. Medication's not quite right yet. There's some tricky behaviors happening. She's scared of him, but he reminds her of an ex-partner that hurt her. And
Mm.
so there's a lot of transference of those feelings onto the child. So supporting her to be able to step back and see him as a little bit separate to to her is sort of, how I'd support people in that way.
Yeah, and that is such an interesting example of how children do hold up a mirror to
Oh yeah.
the things that you need to work on yourself,
Yeah.
and to see the value in that, the experience that's happening with the child. And I think a lot of parents of neurodiverse children particularly
Mm.
are probably facing that a lot.
Oh, of course.
Are you working with a lot of parents who have children who have been diagnosed?
Yes, yes, a lot of children with ADHD or multiple diagnoses, really.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because I'm also working with parents who are separated. And there's often one partner doesn't believe in the diagnosis. And,
Mm.
so in terms of family therapy, there's also that space that we can invite both parties in to really talk about what's best for the child and how to support the child rather than fighting each other and, taking the focus off the fight onto actually what's happening for the child and what does the child need. So, it's big work and it's hard work, but yeah, there are certainly a lot more diagnoses happening. I know, just sort of back to your question about, how difficult is it for parents I think the last 2 years there's been a 32% rise in Australia in anxiety in children, and I think uh, no, sorry, I've got that wrong. In children 6 to 12 years, there's been a 45% rise in anxiety in presentations and people seeking support for anxiety. And I think the other important statistic too is that 40% of parents are feeling anxious about parenting.
Yeah,
And that's huge.
it is. It's
Yeah,
enormous, and that's impacting children.
correct. Yeah.
And do you work with parents in helping them understand how it's a very, I guess, it's a very sensitive area to approach in terms of not blaming parents for their children's anxiety because it's not about blaming.
No.
It's about awareness, creating awareness that your energy and the way that you manage your own emotions has an impact on your children because they are so receptive to
Yeah.
energies and probably more so than adults because they're not conditioned yet. And so they are ultra sensitive to how you're feeling, what your moods are. Same with teachers as well. And
Yeah.
um, how do you approach that with parents in terms of helping them be more aware of and aware of their own self-care and really focusing on their well-being as part of their parenting
Yeah.
as an essential part?
Well, I'm a bit quirky sometimes, and I haven't got my props here. But one of the ways, I'll just put this on. One of the ways that I talk to parents about sort of all of that stuff is it your our nervous systems are so connected. And so when my nervous system is feeling anxious or upset or frustrated, then children pick that up. They pick it up just intuitively, and they'll alter their behavior, depending on what they think you might need as a parent, rather than the other way around. So it's really important that we understand ourselves and our own feelings. And so I use glasses as a metaphor. So often during the day. So I might get up and I've been for a walk, right? And so I've got my sunny, happy, I'm really, it's a great day kind of glasses on. And then I might walk in some dog poo and I've walked it through the house, right? So then if I had another pair of glasses, I'd put my oh frustrated, glasses on. And then so I might clean that up, and then one of the kids gets up and spills the milk. And so then I might have my, oh my God, I've got so much to do. Now I'm overwhelmed kind of glasses on. And we have all these kind of different change of lenses, if you like, throughout the day. The thing is, we don't tell the kids. Often we just move through the situations without kind of saying, "Oh, mummy's feeling annoyed this morning because I stood in the dog poo and now it's all through the house."
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your kids could help me, get the lunches ready, or so we miss those moments where we get to share how we're feeling. First of all, acknowledge how we're feeling. So go inside first, acknowledge it, share how we're feeling, and then also include the children in, whatever's needed to navigate that time or that space. And so if we think, if any parents listening, you think about your day and how many times things happen that you kind of change lenses, it can
So
be
many.
yeah, and it can be incredibly fast, quick paced that happens. So what I work with parents on is first of all that acknowledgement of themselves and what's happening for them. And it takes practice and it takes time, and it also takes getting rid of some of the stuff that kind of is that core, I'm not, I don't belong, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough,
Yeah.
that core childhood stuff. And then, help them to have the language to be able to say, what I'm feeling, and what I need right now.
Yeah, and there's so many lessons in that for children and I guess most of what parenting is about leading by example and being the leader that you want your children to follow, but also to aspire to be as a parent themselves in the future. And I guess the lessons there are that it's okay to be having a bad day, but as long as you share that with someone, you can actually communicate. And it's showing them that it's really important to communicate how you're feeling, but also to show them that it's okay to ask for help as well, even as a parent.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the time we're always, particularly as mums, helping everyone else. and it's very difficult to ask for help yourself. But showing kids that it's okay, it's a normal thing to ask for help and to for them to reciprocate, and it is a partnership. Being a parent and the child, it's actually a partnership as well. But there's also a fine line between putting a lot of your emotional stuff onto your kids, and I know that I was very young when my parents divorced, and I took on my mother's emotional challenges myself. She probably didn't realize that she was putting a lot of responsibility onto me as a young child, but I took it on because I'm the very sensitive child, and it's taken me a long time to realize that actually my needs matter as well, and my emotions and feelings are important, not just everybody else's. So it's a really fine line between doing like showing that it's okay to be not okay, but also so your children don't feel responsible for your happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great point, Rachel, and a good example from your own family
Mm.
about how that impacts even, today, how you parent and how you parented.
Yes.
And you're right, it's not our children's responsibility to make us happy or please us. It's not their responsibility to do that. And we have to be really mindful of how we share what we share. And, like sometimes, every parent stuffs it up.
Mm.
Like we get it wrong.
Yeah.
Even in any relationship, sometimes we lose it. Sometimes we say mean things. Sometimes we all do that. And so part of that teaching children is also about owning it
Yeah.
and apologizing. And there's ways to do that. Like there's really, really good ways to be able to apologize to children that shows them that you truly, are sorry. Not, and I don't use the word sorry, it's more an apology. I apologize for and giving them an example of what you did because we want kids to know that they can apologize as well, but it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right to stuff up, but you got to own it.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I think if parents are feeling, that kind of overwhelm and that sense of, oh God, I am totally stuffing my kids up, just to know that it's okay, and there's lots of help out there and there's lots of time, lots of spaces to be able to get support.
Yeah.
But knowing that really the thing that children mostly need is parents to be their very best selves and to be, really mindful of how is their own emotional intelligence. We want to grow children with really good emotional intelligence where they can share what they're thinking and feeling and share it in a way that they can um, that we can hear it. And I suppose that's the thing. Children don't have the language because they're children,
Mm. Yeah.
and we have to teach them and we have to share with them and we have to model. You mentioned modeling before. We have to model that stuff. And I had a parent come in. She had a 4-year-old and he had a really terrible tantrum. And I've been working with her for a little while and I've met this little guy, just, gorgeous, busy 4-year-old. And she came in and described a tantrum, and I'm not calling it a tantrum. He had a really big emotional response to something. And it was just before Christmas. His parents have separated. There's a lot going on. And she described what he did. And I was like, oh, phew, I thought you were going to say something else. And she's like, what? That was really bad. That was like, he was out of control. And I said, yeah, but he's 4, right?
Mm.
Like if he wasn't
Still
having
learning.
if he wasn't having this response to a big emotion, then I kind of would be worried. And it kind of just she felt relieved, that there wasn't anything significantly wrong with him. But there's a lot of, there's work to do for her around how she responded and how she tried to control it rather than
Yes.
um, ride the wave of big emotions, and often, when we see our kids having a really big emotion, it's not about trying to stop it or or cut it off. It's often about how we respond, really noticing that we are calm and that we are present and that we just are there. And what do you need? I'm here, I'm here.
Yes.
Because the way children learn to regulate is by, you know, with our support.
Parents.
Yeah, and also with our support to say, you're okay, it's okay, you'll be
Yeah.
okay, you know.
You
Yeah.
used a word that I think is one of the major challenges for parents, and that is control. And that sense of certainty, because there is so much, I suppose, going on in people's lives, and we underestimate how children are impacted by all of the chaos of our lives going on, even though, you're trying to pay mortgages, put food on the table, um, be excelling at work, excelling at parenting, and putting so much pressure on yourself to do well in everything. And that sense of control with children is a challenge because they're not little robots, they're little humans who are there to be molded and guided and really ultimately loved. But there seems to be more of a push to control everything that children do. Do you think that is as a result of the lifestyle choices that we've chosen, or that we've created over the last 15, 20 years? I saw it happening, I guess, when my children were little, and I saw a lot of my friends putting their children into childcare so they could go back to work. And I actually started my business before my children were born, so I could raise them myself. And I know that's not possible for everyone, and it's not an easy thing to do. But it seems that because parents are not parenting full time now, they're kind of like part-time parents in some ways, because their children are being cared for by other people for most of the day, and they're only seeing them small amount of time in the morning and in the evenings, that it becomes a I guess a battleground of, how do I control this child, because they should know what they're doing because they're being cared for by, I'm paying these people to care for my child and to guide them. But really, how do we help parents break through that feeling that they have to be in control, and that they have to control the child, or the child needs to be in control all the time?
Mm.
It's a
Yeah,
it's
it's a big question.
it's a
A
long
big,
question, I know. My questions are very long.
no, that's good. I love it. I love the question. Because I think sometimes when parents are really busy and we're juggling so much. Um, and it's really hard to stay attuned to our kids and attuned to ourselves as well. And often, those moments where we all get home from work and, school or childcare or whatever, it often is a transactional period where we've got to put the lunchbox up and there's the washing and then there's this and that.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
that often when we come home, parents launch into the doing part of parenting.
Yeah.
And often what's missing and what children need is that reconnection. So that plugging back into, I'm loved, I belong, I am safe. So
Yeah.
that plugging back into home or plugging back into you as a parent. So I think that that's something that is often missing. Um, and often kids come home and they've had a really big day at school or at childcare and they've been good. And I've got my little fingers up for, quotation marks.
They've
They've
been
been
controlled.
good for everybody. And
Yeah.
they come home and parents will often say they're good at school, but when they get home, they're horrid.
Yeah.
And so often, devices come out just to kind of pacify and to distract the children from, whatever that big emotions are that are happening. So what I see is that things like iPads and screens and gaming becomes a distraction from actually allowing children to really process the emotions of the day. And even for parents, right? So parents come in, do the transactional stuff, maybe sit down and watch Netflix or scroll through their phones or whatever. Again, it's a distraction and almost a pacifying, rather than actually being really present to what's happening, what feelings are happening, or being attuned to what's happening for their children. So I think that and I'm not anti, I'm a little bit I'm a little bit anti screens for
Yeah.
younger children because I just think it's stealing their soul away.
Yes.
It's stealing
Distraction
away.
from connection.
Yeah, it's stealing them from being able to connect with you, with mums, with their mums and their dads or whoever's parenting them.
Yep.
And I think so. In answer to your question, I think there's a really important part of reconnecting and um, coming back in under the wing, under your wings,
Yes.
when we get home and just being present and being attuned to what's happening for your children. And that doesn't mean asking them a million questions. It can actually just be sitting with them, or it can be just even giving them a little hug for, a minute or three
Cuddles on
minutes
the
or
couch.
whatever. Yeah, but that kind of reconnecting. And some kids won't want that. Some kids will want to push you away because they want to get on the screens. And I think that's where screens have become a tool, I suppose, as that's sometimes used as reward and punishment. And it's not healthy in a lot of ways. Yes, it's great for education and learning, and I get all that. But I think there are moments where um, we have to, as parents, really know who we are, and we really have to know where we come from and what's our stuff, and we really have to know how do we tune in to our children when they are ours, because for such a, you mentioned,
Short time.
yeah, they're out, they're learning, and they're at somewhere while we're at work, and so when we've got them, we really make that time precious.
Yeah, and that quality time is so precious. And I think it just made me think of when I just froze.
Sorry, Rachel. Yeah,
That's
that's okay. You're back.
yeah, that quality time is so precious, and it just made me think about when my kids were younger, not so much now. Oh, actually, still now. I would normally wait till they were ready to share their day with me, and it was usually uh, at bedtime. That those
Yeah,
times when you're saying goodnight and they want to share a few things with you, and it's so important to just stop and listen. Don't interject, just listen to them
yeah,
and then ask them questions instead of giving your opinion, and just really
yeah,
take those beautiful moments, seizing teachable moments, I call them,
yeah,
where you can share a little bit about your day also and share some strategies if they've got a challenge at school or whatever.
yeah,
But really making sure you stop, because
yeah,
often my kids, because I worked from home, they would come into my office and I would need to stop what I'm doing, and I still have to do that because my daughter,
yeah.
21, she's, Mom, are you listening? And I have to stop what I'm doing and just
Yes,
focus on her and listen to what she's saying,
yeah,
and be very conscious of how I respond.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I
yeah.
I agree. I still, I have a 19-year-old, and she's never been one to come to me. I've always had to seek her out.
Yes.
And
And they're
so
all
they're all different. But still at 19, I seek her out to just uh, be alongside. Um, Not that I want to know everything that's going on, but I want to do the check-in, and I want to get a sense of her and a sense of how she's traveling. And so, with her, it's a gentle kind of nudging alongside, as opposed to my other child who would come out and just tell me everything.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Some of them are super open. And yeah, like my son is a closed book. I have to
yeah,
almost cry, but
yeah,
sometimes he's ready for a chat, and I just have to stop everything that I'm doing because I
yeah,
know, wow, he's actually talking to me about something that's important to him.
yeah,
Just acknowledging that whatever they're saying to you is important to them.
Yeah, Rachel, you're touching on something really important, and a lot of you know, uh, this is something that I really worked on with in the corporate world as well, and with teachers, is because you could be the best teacher in the world, or you could be the best CEO in the world, but if you have no communication skills, or if you've got very poor communication skills, then it's a challenge.
Yeah,
Like people are not going to engage with you, or your relationships are not going to be as good as they could be if you're not a good communicator. And it's not something we learn. We don't learn how you talked about listening. I mean, it's the one thing, right? If I had three things to teach parents, and I teach every parent that I engage with, is how to actively listen,
yeah,
because it is the key to any relationship, really. It's so important. And yet, I mean, there are lots of classes for it and things, but it's so important
it is.
um in any relationship, but
Yeah,
particularly with our children, because we can either open the door and let whatever's coming come, or we can have lots of door closes, like, or roadblocks, kind of, if you want to call them that, like, oh, you'll be okay, or oh, don't worry about it, or all of that sort of stuff. So yeah,
yes,
it's something I'm big on teaching and sharing with parents and teachers. Like, it's not something that teachers are often um, taught really either.
yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about the work that you do with schools as well?
Yeah, so I've been working with a number of schools, and some of that has been running parenting programs. So 4-week parenting programs. It's a couple of hours, and what a part of it is not just about coming and learning about parenting, but it's about connection and connecting those parents. And it's always so lovely that when they come in, and there'll be a variety of ages and parents of children with different stages, and they don't know each other. And so my workshops are very interactive. There's no sitting down just listening to boring old me. It's, we're up and about, we're connecting, we're learning. So it's a very uh, hands-on, because I'm a huge believer that we learn by doing, and that whole adult learning model is exactly that we learn by doing. So that's what we do in the workshops. So we, whatever is going on, whatever we're talking about over the 4 weeks, um, there's always, lots of activity. And there's also, when we come, we might have had a week and we come back and we have a time where people are sharing some of the things that they noticed, or that they did over the week. And so I do some coaching through that as well. And it's really lovely, because I might just be talking with one parent, but the other parents are all getting something from that and all learning something. And, I'll come back the next week and they go, oh, I tried that, and, that worked, or this didn't work. And so then we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's sort of one aspect. The other aspect is working with running sort of parent workshops, or small parent workshops, or talks. Um, and I'm doing a few at the early this year, because some schools want to get a head start on that really good parent engagement. So that's really helpful for schools to have some, sort of an external come in. It's not about me, it's about really connecting parents together. I'll give them some information, I'll give them some, sort of what we've talked about today, but it's really about getting them to connect with each other. And also, I think for schools, having some, like, being seen to invest in their parents is a big winner for schools, because um, parents feel more engaged, they feel more respected, they feel more welcomed. And again, it's about connection, it's about relationships. It's not rocket science here. And when the teachers can have a better relationship with their parents, then the outcomes for children are increasingly better.
Yes.
So, and the other thing that I do is work with teachers. So, run workshops and trainings for for teachers on communication, things like working with parents, like how do you work with really tricky parents, how to have hard conversations or tricky conversations, because there's, often lots of them. And we've talked a little bit about how knowing yourself first is really important. It's important for teachers
Sure.
because when a parent is, confronts them or something, the very first thing that happens is they often are triggered from their own stuff, and so then what gets lost is the whole aim of the whole parent-teacher relationship is the outcome or the well-being of the child. And so, bringing teachers back in and teaching them about communication and about relationships. So that's been really exciting, and I kind of feel like I've come a bit of full circle coming back into the teaching space and working with teachers. But it's a hard gig teaching, and I think there's a lot of demands on teachers, and so being able to support them and make this easier allows them to be able to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as adults, it gets harder to make friends and connect with people because you have so many, I guess, in a lot of ways, limiting self-beliefs about who you are, perhaps, and what you can bring to the table in a relationship. Whereas when you're a child, you are, especially in a school environment, almost forced to connect with other kids. Otherwise, you won't make friends.
Yeah, that's right.
Feel like an outsider. And I guess at the end of the day, that's who we are. We're children trying to be adults. And I love the fact that you bring your inner child into your work as well,
Yeah.
and how you build that sort of creative aspect, or you've brought that creative aspect. And I guess that's the joy and the benefit of working for yourself. You can create your own fun
Yeah, that's right.
and bring that into your work and show other people that it doesn't have to be hard. It
No,
isn't rocket science. It's such a joy, and it can be a joy if you want it to be. Like if you want your life to be joyful, you can create it that way.
that's
So
right.
how do you actually help yourself in terms of the the way that you manage your own well-being and taking on other people's energies and challenges, because you're dealing with a lot of people who are going through a lot of major challenges in their lives with divorce and I guess financial worries and all sorts of different things, and especially I guess educators as well who are challenged in their roles. So how do you manage your own
Mhm.
well-being?
It's a good question. Thank you for asking. I'm really conscious of it. I have to be because I am super sensitive, and I do. Yeah, I'm good at my job because of my super sensitive superpower. I'll call it that.
You're an
Um,
empath.
what's that?
You're an empath.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's a superpower.
Mm.
But it can also be my kryptonite where I get too caught in, what's happening and the stories can keep going around. So I'm really, really conscious of what's in my mind. I walk on the beach every day, and I make sure I'm up sort of around 5:30, when it's quiet. And I suppose what I really do is I nurture that kind of inner child. I nurture and know myself. So, I know that she is this beautiful, fun, creative, brilliant little girl, and she needs to have fun. So I've been for a walk and a swim this morning, in the water, and that always makes me feel so much better. But also, I'm just really conscious of what I let in. So, um, over the holidays, my husband's been watching quite a few of the, drug cartel kind of videos and stuff, or Netflixy series things. But I can't watch it because I think about it. I go to bed and I'm thinking about, I wonder if that guy died. And so I'm
Yes.
really conscious of what I let in and um, who I let in. So I'm really on social media or anything like that. I'm really mindful of having positive role models for myself. I have a mentor. I'm always learning because if I don't, I get a bit, if I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I'm dying. So I'm always looking for mentors and people that can help support me. And I reach out. Um, but I'm really, yeah, I suppose very conscious of um, my own self-talk and how I nurture that inner self, because I think that is the key for all of us, like all of the parents listening, she or he is worthy of being held and heard and loved. And I think that's kind of the key to everything that I do. And so I have to do that for myself. And I think all parents have to know how to love themselves and how to really support and nurture and grow themselves. And I don't care what age you are. I think it's a lifelong thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm so pleased that we met because I think you're just doing amazing work and you're an amazing person and really a guiding light for parents. And I think that anyone who works with you will clearly benefit and the value that you provide with your own experiences as a parent, but also the work that you've done on yourself, the personal development work you've done also that you're sharing that with other people now is such a gift. So I really am grateful that you could come on the podcast today and share your story. And if any parents want to be in touch with you, how can they find out more information and connect with you?
Yeah, so on my social medias, so we'll put the links in somewhere, I'm sure. But Strengthening Families Australia is my company, and so I think it's strengthening.oz is my Instagram, and Facebook is Strengthening Families Australia, I think. I should know this. But keep an eye out. Yeah, I'm more on socials. I'm just updating my website, so I'm working with somebody to do that because I'm terrible at tech. Good at lots of things, but not tech. Yeah, so there's lots of different ways, but yeah, I've got a free workshop coming up in early Feb, just sort of to reconnect and thrive for parents. Just so there'll be lots of free things and a new course coming this year, which is exciting. So we've recorded that over the break, and that'll be up online soon enough. But and also, for any online coaching and therapy stuff, yeah, my details are in Strengthening Families Australia.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Rachel. I really love what you're offering here for parents and for the whole community. The whole education community, I think, is brilliant. So thank you for being also a guiding light in this space. Yeah,
Most
and thanks
welcome.
thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure that we'll be in touch and work together in some capacity in the future to be able to support as many parents and teachers and educators as we can to make sure that these children are thriving and that they keep their spark and they grow
Yeah.
into adults who are who are happy in themselves really, and who are able to thrive as parents in the future as well. So thanks again for your time today. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this episode from our Circle of Support series of the podcast. If you would like further information about how to be in contact with our guest from today, please click on the links below. If you are a parent who is struggling with any of the issues we've raised in this episode, I invite you to book a call with me by clicking on the link below or scanning the QR code on the screen so you can share with me what challenges you're experiencing and I can share how I may be able to support you as you guide your child or children through their learning. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our Creating Connections podcast to continue to learn from myself and our guests how you can best support your child as they navigate their learning. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on the next episode in our Circle of Support series.